Thanks so much for being with us this afternoon. So you've almost certainly heard the term quiet quitting by now. And if you haven't, just so you know, that is where you don't actually quit your job, but you do the bare minimum required of you. Well, now there's a new term that's making the rounds. It's quiet firing. Uh-oh. What is that? And could it happen to you? Jonathan Nightingale is the co-founder of Raw Signal Group. They provide management and leadership training. Thanks for your time today, Jonathan.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
So let's start by defining what quiet firing is. Is it as straight up as it sounds?
I mean, it's a new name for the oldest trick in the book. So basically what it's describing is a manager who for whatever reason has decided to fire an employee, but doesn't know how to do that, lacks the skill to do it, lacks the courage to do it, whatever it is. And so rather than just having that conversation with the employee and going through the process in an above-board way, they just try to make that person's work so terrible that the person quits.
Sounds super passive-aggressive to me,
You
and
think?
not a good way to run a company.
Yeah, no, it's really awful. It's every new manager thinks they've invented something really clever when they come up with it, but it's a really old technique. It's been tried a lot of times, and it's really just a horrible thing to put your employee through.
You know, we talked about this we've talked about this actually a couple of times with different people. That's something new and possibly brought on by the pandemic. I'm wondering how much of this is brought on by the same thing, the fact that we keep hearing employees are the ones basically driving the bus now, right? And employers are looking for laborers, they have to pay more, but then this is still going on. How much of it is because, do you think, of the pandemic?
Man, you know, it's like the pandemic has certainly changed a lot about work. I mean, our job, we're talking with companies, we're talking with bosses every day who are trying to figure this stuff out, and certainly the last 2 years has been a wild ride. But this approach, this quiet firing thing, I think if you were going to hang it off the pandemic, what you'd say is there's been so much change, there's been so many people who have moved jobs and stuff, that a lot of the managers who are in charge of day-to-day work for their team are brand new. And nobody stopped to train them. Nobody stopped to spell out, you know, this thing that you're calling quiet firing. That's got a different name. That's called constructive dismissal, and it's been around for a long time. And there's a lot of law that says that in many jurisdictions, like, this is illegal. This is violating your contract and the way you're supposed to treat your employees. So I think you're right that the pandemic might be exacerbating something because it's putting a bunch of people in new positions of management. But that's an explanation. That's not an excuse. If you're cashing the paycheck as a manager, you got to get educated on what your responsibilities are there.
So you touched on something there, like constructive dismissal, and that there's actually laws against that in Canada. So then, Jonathan, what if you suspect that this is what's going on? How does an employee proceed? What should you do?
Well, I mean, the first thing is to ask yourself, you know, or ask your friends or whatever, you know, are you being objective about it? Everybody has times at work when, you know, a project that they really wanted to work on gets assigned to someone else, or they're asked to take on new duties. Like, that's not so unusual. But in a case like this, in a constructive dismissal case, it's targeted. It's only you. Nobody else is getting this treatment, right? Because they're trying to get you to quit. And it's awful. It feels like you're being jerked around because you are being jerked around. And so if you have a sense that that's happening, I mean, I guess my first piece of advice is talk to a lawyer. You're going to want some advice on what your rights are here and how to proceed. But I'll boldly predict, I'm not a lawyer, but I'll boldly predict that the first thing your lawyer is going to tell you is to start writing things down. When did this change happen? Do you have a copy of that email? When you informed management that you were disappointed, what was their response? They're going to want to see a paper trail, because if it gets to the point where your lawyer's got to write the company's lawyer a nasty letter, you're going to want to be able to demonstrate that there's been a pattern here, that it's not just, I got a work assignment I didn't like, but it's more, I'm being maliciously mistreated in a way that's actually covered by the law.
You know, we've talked about employee-employer relationships, which you just touched on now. Do you find from talking to employers that their attitudes are beginning to change? Regardless of its pandemic or not, all of a sudden we have a new paradigm here and they're thinking differently?
Do you know what the good ones are? I don't need everything about work to be totally different because of the pandemic. But what we notice is that the organizations that are out there leading, the organizations that are growing through the pandemic and attracting a bunch of talent and stuff, when you talk to the bosses there, they're really trying to engage in a conversation. Like, they understand that they're managers and they've got They've got a set of authorities around who they hire and who they promote, who they fire. They know that. But they want to meet employees as much as they can in terms of like, hey, here's what we're offering and here's what we need from you, and is that a good deal? And can we talk about that like grown-ups? And they're thriving. But you know, we're also seeing 2.5 years in, people are tired of the pandemic, no doubt, but a lot of companies are also tired of having to be so flexible. They want to go back to 2019. They want to go back to having everybody in an office and to employers having all the power in that relationship. You can see it from the way they talk about it. And I don't know. I mean, I think about who I was in 2019. Like, none of us are who we are or are who we were in 2019. I don't think we're going back that way.
So it won't go back. It won't go back to how things were before.
I mean, you'll have companies who say out loud, you know, we're in office 5 days a week. We're not doing the remote thing. We're not doing the hybrid work thing. We want everybody together because that feels like a good team. And I bet you're going to find a lot of employees who want to run back to that too. But I think what COVID has been more than anything is a reminder that your employees have choices. You know, we work with companies from all over the world, but we work a lot with Canadian companies because we're a Canadian company. And one of the things that's cool about Canadian companies is that they see so much opportunity for expansion. I mean, we've got this giant market just south of us, but like most Canadian businesses you talk to want to grow. They want to reach out and expand. And so in the early parts of COVID, when they realized they could hire from anywhere, that was really exciting for them. They started to really spread their wings. Now this idea that some of them want to ratchet back, I just think it's giving up such an opportunity. And in exchange for what? Like, you know, I like hanging around the office and talking to people too, but I think that the future is a lot more exciting than that.
Mm-hmm. And then I wonder, so we know quiet quitting, not effective. Quiet firing, not effective. But then you do something that's called quiet management that actually can be quite effective, Jonathan?
Oh, we don't do quiet management. It is another word. Somebody's trying to make fetch happen there. Somebody's got quiet management out there on LinkedIn, and they're talking about, you know, this idea that a manager should get out of their people's way. A manager should sort of, you know, set the expectations and then let people go be brilliant. I think there's elements of that I would agree with for sure. But one of the things we push bosses on is, look, sometimes as a boss, your job is to be loud, not to shout at your people, but like if somebody comes to you and says that they're being sexually harassed at work, I don't want you quiet, right? If somebody comes to you and says that they're concerned that something is going wrong with our product and it might put our customers at risk, I don't want you quiet in that moment. There are times when management, you know, you're getting paid to sit in this seat, and a lot of the time it's sort of a con. You get credit for the brilliant work that your team is doing. That's amazing. But like from time to time, we look to you and we say, hey, somebody's got to make a call here. Somebody's got to take accountability here. And what I see with this, you know, quiet firing and a lot of it is managers trying to avoid that accountability for doing their jobs. And that's something that I just don't think employees are going to be patient with.
You know, it's funny. It's an ever-changing situation. Whether we go back or don't go back to what it was in 2019, I don't think you can make an argument that, you know what, it's ever going to be quite exactly the same as it was. And really, the onus, it would seem to be here, is going to be on employers. At least now, the employers are the ones that have the ball in their hands and decide where they're going to go. And you wonder how long it's going to take to actually swing back the other way completely, where they realize, hey, I'm just working here. I'm not the boss. It's as I said, it's ever evolving. It's fascinating to watch.
Yeah, it really is. And, you know, before I started Raw Signal Group with my co-founder, I worked in tech startups. And tech startups are used to having to reinvent themselves all the time. And whether it's learning new technologies or expanding to a new market or trying a different marketing strategy, they understand that you can do that stuff. You've just got to get educated about it, right? That there's best practices here that we need to learn from or that we need to invent, but we should at least know what came before. With management, it's funny that a lot of people get that job and they figure like, well, I'm a good people person. I can figure it out, right? And get blindsided, frankly.
Good luck with that.
By how much real work there is to do, and also how much skill you can build. Like there's techniques for all this stuff. You just got to get yourself trained. You cannot be making it up as you go when like the people experiencing your mistakes are like human beings.
Good point. Hey, this is fascinating. Thank you so much. Very much appreciate your time. Did you want to ask one other thing?
I just want to know, so Raw Signal, you guys provide management and leadership training. Where are you based out of, Jonathan?
We're based out of Toronto, but ever since the pandemic started, most of our work's been You know, we're based inside a Zoom window a lot of the time.
Exactly.
Based inside a Zoom window. Welcome
How
to 2022.
things have changed, yeah.
Jonathan Nightingale from Ross Signal Group. Jonathan, thanks so much for your time.
Hey, thank you both.